There is an issue of personal responsibility. You're signing a contract. You're agreeing to pay back on time. If you don't pay back on time, you have to pay a fee. Now, this gets back to what we were just talking about. If they don't pay back on time, and because credit card companies have major issues with some people simply deciding they're never going to pay back, they have to somehow spread those costs out. Now, should those costs be spread out so far that the consumers who are paying their balances every month on time, should our costs go up? Should we have to pay higher annual fees? Should we lose things like airline mile points because the credit card companies have to compensate for the bureaucrats in Washington suddenly interfering with their business model? There's no such thing as a free lunch, which is something that you and I'm sure,
yes,
as economists are very familiar with. Well, if there's no such thing as a free lunch, if the government is going to tell these credit card companies, you have to charge less to this group of consumers over here, guess what? It's like pressing on a balloon. It's going to pop up someplace else. And I like the miles I get from using my credit cards. I don't want to pay a, $95 annual fee or whatever,
right.
But if the government's going to intervene and poke over here, something else is going to happen over here. Unintended consequences, second order effects. I mean, these are all things that, what was it Bastiat said? The difference between a good economist and a bad economist is a good economist looks at the scene, i.e. the bureaucrats imposing these caps and price controls. But we also look at the unseen. How are financial institutions in a competitive marketplace where they're trying to keep their shareholders happy? How are they going to respond? And they're going to respond in ways that make people who pay their bills on time worse off. If you're one of these financial institutions and you know that a certain class, let's say, I'm sure young people, I imagine, are worse than old people at dealing with their credit card balances. So if you're looking at, say, people aged 21 to 25, and they have a late payment rate of, I'm going to make numbers up, 9% versus say people 40 to 60 have a late payments of only 1%. And all of a sudden the government comes in and says, you can't charge these late fees and other things like that. What are you going to do? Well, let's just stop giving credit cards to people 21 to 25 or to people with low income or maybe they'll redline. They'll say, oh, well, look, the Hispanic default rate, the black default rate, and so on and so forth. And they'll start playing games like that. We should be celebrating the fact that we have a very strong financial industry in our country. We have enormous ability for even low income people to access credit. Is that always going to work out perfectly? Are some people going to get in over their heads because they don't have the self-discipline not to put things on a credit card? Yeah, but they should deal with the consequences of that as part of the learning process. We were all dumb and young at one point in time. Hopefully we learn. But the idea of the government coming in and just imposing a flat rule where you're going to have all these unintended consequences we just talked about, including denial of credit for people who are young, people with low income. And that, I think, is going to be very unfortunate.